Hello everyone. This video, excuse me, it's not COVID, thankfully. This video is about the big mistake I made getting this D90 body shell onto the Carisma chassis. And I'm going to talk you through what happened, why. There's a build video series of such. If you want to go and check it out, have a look. But this is to stop you making a mistake I made. Only if you're going to put or go down the route of using short shocks, 70mm or 80mm shocks, to try and get the body low enough to the on the chassis basically, and so there's not a huge jacked up gap here between the wheel arch and the top of the tyre. I went down the route of picking, trying to use, where are they? If I can get them to focus, 80mm and 70mm shocks. There we go. And along with that, a whole box full of, you going to focus for me? Yeah, a whole box full of springs. Blue ones, black ones, longer ones, shorter ones. And the result of that was, it was a complete balls up and it didn't work. Not the way I wanted it to work anyway. There's been a couple of people on YouTube, I've asked a few questions, people that have done this conversion, and theirs look fine, so they must have done something slightly different. You can never really always, unless they answer questions and you go into lots of detail with them to find out exactly which route they took. They might have used different shocks to me. But the shocks I used didn't work for me, and I'll go through why. What I've got on here now, and it seems pretty obvious now it's done, that I've got 100mm shocks on here, and as a result the suspension and the flex that you're going to get is pretty damn good, and we'll zoom in and go through the details of exactly what I've done. But this kind of setup for me is exactly what I wanted, and there's some suspension in here and there's some bounce. It's not quite 100% right yet, so I need to fettle with it a little bit, but it's good enough for the bench video. So let's zoom in and I can show you exactly what went wrong, the mistakes I made and how I rectified it and what it's like now. So first of all, let's get the body shell off. Actually, no, before I do that, you may have noticed that it's got blacked out windows, which you didn't have before. The reason for that is I have had to absolutely muller the interior to run with these 100mm shocks. It had nice scale bits in the interior. I painted the seats and everything, but you know, that's kind of irrelevant now. I'll show you what I've done with the interior in a little while. So these shocks, these are the standard 100mm shocks that you get with the Carisma sca1e kit. They're fairly chunky. They are big old shocks, and I thought, well, this is never going to work with 100mm shocks on it, because this is really jacked up. I mean, you can see here there's a lot of space between the top of the axle and the chassis, so in my mind, sticking the D90 on with the interior, it's going to be sitting far too high and it's just not going to look right. So that's why I decided originally to go with, I mean, look at the shocks that I had on there originally, the size comparison. Yeah, there's quite a big difference here, not just in length but in girth as well, you know, good girth. So the interior is important, and that's why I mentioned the blacked out windows, because I wanted scale bits in the interior. So I didn't want to have lots of cutting and lots of intrusion from this gearbox stuck into the main part of the cab, so you could see through the windows, see all the wires and everything else. So my main focus was low shocks, minimal interior intrusion, but at least I could get away with, and then have, you know, a nice scale look between the top of the wheel arches and the tyres. There was a massive problem with this, and that problem is this here. So this front pumpkin on the axle is rather large. You know, it's a big old pumpkin, and it's also got where the link kind of attachment supports on top of the axle here. They make it even larger. So what was happening with the 70mm shocks was, you know, it was kind of compressed like this. It was quite a... So I had very little travel. Once the body was on and you had some, excuse me, some sag in the suspension, I had, like, travel this way, sideways, but I didn't have downwards travel, really. Minimal. So what was happening... God, I've got something in my throat. Sorry, folks. I had an issue running the truck where it would just kind of... You could tell there was no suspension. It didn't drive very well on camera. I've had it on a few videos, and I was never happy with it. Very frustrated with it. Also, with these 70mm and 80mm shocks that I used... Team Raffi ones, actually, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the shocks. I think maybe certain shocks work better on other chassis, but for this, the 70 and 80mm shocks didn't work. To add to this, I had to shorten the wheelbase, so the front links were shortened. I can't remember why I didn't shorten the rear links. I can't remember. I did the front, which I didn't think necessarily was the greatest idea, because you've also got the steering geometry, and so the whole thing's been pulled back, which means the shocks are at a slight angle, and the smaller shocks didn't cope with that very well. I didn't get a lot of rebound. I've got blue springs in here, black springs. I bought some other springs that weren't for these kits. I could not, for the life of me, get it to rebound properly and to drive properly with enough flex. So the ultimate issue was the suspension. It just wasn't really working how I wanted it to. So Andrew, to be fair to him, came up with the idea when I was in the pro. I had this shell on eBay, and I thought, I've just had enough of it. And this shell is my pride and joy. It's a really cheap shell. You know, it's such good value for money. But I had it in the garage here, and I put it on, I cleaned it up, put it on eBay. I thought, oh, I really don't want to sell it. But I was thinking, what other chassis can I get that will fit it? Which I think was the RC 4-wheel drive TF2. Was one of the only options, which is a lot of money. And that wasn't the whole idea of this project. So I was a bit annoyed, peed off, fed up, because this project's been going on for a while and caused quite a bit of frustration. And Andrew said, well, why don't you try putting 100mm shocks on it and just like butcher the interior. Now the only reason I tend to put interiors in is because of him, the arse. He moans at me. If I had my way, and mainly laziness, I'd black out all my windows and not have interiors. But he said, oh, you know, put it in, and fair enough, I got hooked along that line. But because of the interior and because of the height that the body had to sit, it clouded the judgment and hadn't let me see the bigger picture. So he said, well, so I thought, right, I'm going to put 100mm shocks on it. The body will definitely go low enough, and I can have lots of flex and good travel, and you won't see in the truck because I'm just going to black out the windows. And then I thought, well, just cut the hell out of the interior and tint the windows. So I've had to cut a shed load, out of the interior. Oh, bugger off. I've had to cut an absolute shed load out of the interior. So there's lots of wires in here, but look, this has all gone. So it has half of his leg. This was all filled in pretty much, apart from a little hole. The centre console was there before. There was lots more to it, but it's a lot of it's disappeared. It's vanished, and because of that, it now sits pretty much, he says, pretty much perfectly. You know, we get it settled. Height wise, it's a little bit high at the front at the moment, the back's sagging a little bit more. I need to drop the shocks a little bit, but as near as damn it's pretty much there. What you've got now is, I don't know if I can get the camera in there, what you've got now is all the gubbins in there. which, yeah, I'm too close to the camera to focus. Oh, there you go. You can see the massive hole. So there's wires and stuff poking through. However, don't tend to get that close to the rigs. So for now, it's not going to be a problem. I can cover that up with bits I can stick on, maybe bits of styrene and stuff like that. But you generally don't see it. Not even through the side window. A little bit, but of course there's nothing going through the floor. I have got the proper Lexan kind of wheel arches, inner wheel arches, and the kind of running boards, if you like. The inner running boards are going to here, so I might put them on if this works. I need to get it out and drive it first to make sure I'm happy with it, but it's a huge improvement. So now it's back up on 100mm shocks. You've got a good bit of travel. I've had to obviously lower the body as much as it will go. The shocks aren't... There's lots of different mounting holes on this, on these shock towers here, that you've got a lot of choice about how high you have it. The other thing I've done was get a bolt through here and bolt these down. These were glued in before, so I've done the same back and the front. So they're the magnet mounts are now glued in, so they're not going anywhere, so that makes it a little bit more sturdy. So what I've done is you have this central piece here, and I've just put the ESC receiver and put everything in the middle, which is why I had to cut a big section out of the interior so that it drops down and it sits flush. So for now, I may have been on to a winner. I need to drive it first, but the first signs looking on the bench here are promising with how the suspension looks. You know, it's going to need some fettling here and there, but I am absolutely over the moon. And it's taught me a very valuable lesson, that to not think in, you know, with a one-track mind, in the point of this is the decision I've made, this is the way to solve it, because I could have just given up on this, and I'm glad I didn't. So it was solvable, because I was getting so pissed off with it, thinking, oh, I can't do this. But it's just me. It was the interior. The interiors are a pain in the arse. They have always been a pain in the arse to me. In all the rigs I've done, because obviously you've got to cut them. They don't, you know, interiors aren't made for one specific chassis quite often, unless obviously you buy the whole kit as one. But for stuff like this, you need to cut it, and trying to get it so that it looks nice inside, in this instance, caused me good problems. So, hope this helps somebody, even if one person watches this looking at about making this chassis and body fit and wanting lots of flex, because you could have very little suspension, depends on what you want to use the truck for. So the other setup, if the Team Raffi shocks for me, they didn't work, but some other ones did work. That's the other thing, I didn't want to spend £15 in, you know, on multiple occasions getting 80mm or 70mm shocks. I haven't got an endless budget, so I couldn't keep trying different ones to then find out that they didn't work any better. So budget was a big part of it, about giving up, I guess. And luckily for me, I've managed to make it work without spending very much money at all. And, you know, thinking outside the box with the help of Andrew, I will add and give him credit for. So yeah, unfortunately this truck hasn't had a, you know, good success rate on the run videos with views and things like that, probably because there's so many D90s out there that mine's nothing special. It's special to me because I love it. So I'm going to do some run videos, and I will do another video after I've done a few run videos to report back if anyone's interested, to see how it runs and whether this setup works. So going forward for me, I think butchering interiors to get the look that you want, and maybe having some blacked out windows, is a winner, and it's something that I am not going to discount going forward. So happy story in the end. As I say, hope this helps somebody if you're thinking about doing this project, and also think about the fact that bugger to interiors. Just do what you want, yeah, hopefully it'll work out for you like it has for me. So we'll see this on the run very soon. I don't have a car at the moment. My own car is poorly. It's in the garage, unfortunately, so I can't take this out, which is rather frustrating. But fingers crossed, she works better. I think she will. Like a wobbly Postman Pat van, actually, this reminds me of. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Stay safe, and catch up soon. Bye for now.